The Candyman, the true story of Dean Corll, Houston's real-life boogeyman. Some monsters wear masks, others offer you candy. In the quiet suburbs of Houston, Texas, during the early 1970s, parents whispered to their children to stay close, to come home before dark. Not because of urban legends, but because something real was lurking. A man, friendly, quiet, generous, with sweets. They called him the Candyman. His real name was Dean Corll, and behind his polite smile hid one of the most sadistic killers in American history. Dean Arnold Corll was born on December 24, 1939, in Fort Wayne, Indiana. He had what seemed to be a typical upbringing. His family moved often, eventually settling in Houston. His parents divorced when he was young, and Dean lived with his mother, who was described as strict and overbearing. Later, she would open a small candy company, Pecan Prince, where Dean would work, and earn the nickname that history would never forget. Dean Corll wasn't a drifter or an outcast. He was quiet, neat, and seemingly well-liked. He handed out free candy to neighborhood kids and was known to let teenagers hang around his house, drink beer, and play music. But it wasn't generosity. It was grooming. Behind closed doors, Dean harbored dark urges, ones he soon began to act upon. In 1970, Corll began a twisted partnership with David Brooks, a local teenage boy. Corll promised Brooks money, gifts, and even a car, in exchange for help finding runaway boys. What Brooks didn't know at first, or at least claimed he didn't, was that these boys would never leave Corll's house again. Later, another teen, Elmer Wayne Henley, joined their ranks. At first, Henley thought he was helping Corll with a human trafficking ring, a lie Corll used to justify his crimes. But eventually, Henley would not only learn the truth, he would participate in it. What followed was a string of crimes so horrific, it shocked even seasoned detectives. Between 1970 and 1973, Dean Corll, with the help of Brooks and Henley, lured at least 28 boys and young men, though some believe the number may be higher. The victims were typically between 13 and 20 years old, often from broken homes or living on the edge of society, easy prey. Corll would offer them a place to hang out, free food, alcohol, maybe marijuana, and once inside, it was too late. He had a plywood torture board with handcuffs mounted on it, kept in a bedroom. Victims were tied down, tortured for hours, sometimes days, and subjected to unspeakable abuse. Corll took pleasure in their fear and pain. He was meticulous, patient, and methodical. And then, he would kill them, often by strangulation or shooting. Afterward, he'd wrap the bodies in plastic sheeting and bury them in various locations: a rented boat shed, a woodland area, and even under a nearby beach. For 3 years, the killing continued, unnoticed by authorities. The boys were labeled as runaways, and police didn't investigate deeply. Corll had found the perfect victims, and a society willing to look the other way. But like many monsters, Corll's end came not from the law, but from within his own circle. On August 8, 1973, after a heated argument in Corll's home, Elmer Wayne Henley did something no one expected. He turned on his mentor. That night, Corll had tied up 2 potential victims, one of whom was a girl, which infuriated Henley. After a tense confrontation, Henley retrieved a gun and shot Dean Corll to death, ending the reign of the Candyman forever. The next morning, Henley went to the police and confessed, not just to the killing, but to everything: the kidnappings, the torture, the murders, the graves. Authorities thought he was delusional until he led them to the boat shed. There, they found the first bodies, and the truth began to unravel. Police eventually recovered 28 sets of remains, making it one of the worst serial killing cases in U.S. history at the time. Henley and Brooks were arrested, tried, and sentenced to life in prison. Henley, who still gives interviews from behind bars, has always insisted that he too was a victim, manipulated and brainwashed by Corll. but others believe he was far more complicit. Dean Corll's crimes have largely faded from the public eye, overshadowed by more infamous killers like Ted Bundy or John Wayne Gacy. But in the early 1970s, Houston lived in silent terror, unaware that the real boogeyman was living among them, polite, soft-spoken, and always with candy in his pocket. The story of Dean Corll isn't just about murder, it's about how evil can hide in plain sight. A quiet man, a small candy business, a friendly neighbor, and beneath it all, horror beyond imagination. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more disturbing true crime cases and haunted history. Until next time, stay safe and trust no one.